Shoulders, knees, and toes, my bones, you're keeping me from feeling all alone. I've been praying to 1,000 different stars, to 1,000 different arms, till I found you. I've been chasing by 1,000 different hearts, to 1,000 million hours, now I found you. My nights will never be the same again.
Oh, I was gonna do it with the music hit. Let's go! Episode 75. Hope everyone out there is having a great Friday. It's time to talk about stress. Let's do it. If you guys are in the comments, watching live or on recording, feel free to just give me a little something. Let me know you're alive. Let me know you're here. Let me know that I'm alive. I'm just going to tag everyone. Time to talk stress. What was the title? How to deal with stress. Boop. All right, let's do it. Bingo. All right, let's bring the music down a little bit. Take a little bit more of a serious tone, but not a lot. All right, as we get into this, a couple things I want to share with you guys. One is a flow chart for dealing with stress, and one is going to be how to deal with stress systematically. And normally this is where that loads. There it goes. How to deal with stress systematically. As always, I don't want this to be me talking at you guys. Even if you're here on recording, feel free to drop in some comments. You can like this if it's benefiting you, because it'll show it to more people and interrupt them with hopefully something that can impact them positively. So let's bring the music down a little bit more and let's dive in. First off, anyone out there stressed? Hey, Robert, good morning. Hope you're doing super well out there. If you're a human and you breathe, you are probably stressed. Now, if we think about stress, there's a couple things that come from stress, or there's a couple things that we want to think about when we're starting to talk about stress. The first thing is it chronic, and do we want to change it systematically, or is it very situational and short term? We deal with those differently. But I created this flowchart by inspiration of something that I saw on the internet, and I thought it was kind of funny, and I wanted to share it with you. I also added some things to it. So, and we'll kind of talk about it as we go. So let's say we determine we are stressed. Okay, cool. The first thing we always need to do is stop and figure out why we are. That is a simple term. That is a simple phrase for get awareness, right? A lot of times when we feel stressed, the first thing we want to do is react to the stress. Maybe we have a cry for help by, if you guys haven't heard me say this before, there's only two types of responses that we have with humans. We have loving responses and cries for help. What do I mean? Well, any response that is done to you or that you give to others can fit in those two categories. An example is, let's say I go up to my wife and I say, "Hey, how are you? Oh, how was the store?" That's a loving response. Now, let's say she comes home and she's 15 minutes late and I say, "Where were you?" Right? Where were you? And I make her feel bad, right? That is a cry for help. Another example is, let's just say hypothetically, and I'll say too, with a cry for help, it's usually making the other person feel bad, but really what we're just trying to do is feel better ourselves. I'll use another example. Let's say, I don't know, we'll use patients for example, because they're actually a really good example. If you have a patient that is angry at you because they are not getting something that they feel entitled to, like the ginger ale that they asked for, but they don't they don't realize that somebody was coding in the other room for the last hour, but all they want is their ginger ale. Now, of course, they come to you and they're like, "Hey, where's my ginger ale? I can't believe these nurses, they're like so lazy." Now, of course, we can take that and we can say, "Oh my gosh, you're a jerk, you're whatever." But really, what that person is doing is a cry for help, right? People do not do cries for help when they feel good. They don't. They do loving responses. So you can start to think not only for yourself, but also through other people that are essentially you communicate with, is this a loving response or a cry for help? And people that are crying for help, we can look, and this will go into the next part, but we can look at that through a lens of, oh man, they're suffering, and you can have pity for them. So somebody we already know this, but patients, right? People that are in pain are suffering. And if they're suffering, it's really hard to give loving responses when you're in that much pain. And I believe this is why it's easy for older people, as they get more pain, to become bitter and to just constantly give, we'll say, cries for help. So, anyway, a little bit of a rant here. Is anyone there with me? Is anyone here in the comments before I dive into this more? Oh, man, Robert, good to see you, brother. Okay, so the first thing, get awareness, figure out where we are. Once we figure out where we are, we can then ask, can we do something about it? If we can't do something about it, then we ask ourselves, are we working? Now, just for a second, let's just say hypothetically we can do something about it. We want to use this stressed energy to resolve something, because if we are feeling stressed, stress is just a signal. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Stress gets a negative connotation. And I think one of the reasons it gets this negative connotation is because it tires us out and makes us feel, when it's chronic, not good. But stress is actually not a bad thing on its own. It's just like water. Water is not a bad thing. Water is actually good for you. So is stress. However, just in America, we tend to get too much of it. So that's why we say stress is bad, right? If I were to ask you, is stress good or bad? We'd say bad, right? But it's not. Stress is not bad. It's the amount of stress we're getting is bad. Just like water is not bad, but water can kill you if you drink too much. So we want to first realize, is there something we can do about it? And if we can, we use this stress energy to resolve the thing. Now, if, we could go deeper here. Let's say that, there isn't something you could do about it. Or actually, before that, let's complete the cycle. So we use the stress energy to resolve the thing. We ask ourselves, are we still stressed? If the answer is no, namaste, you are not stressed. If you're still stressed, stop and figure out why you are. So it might be because you weren't able to resolve the thing fully. But maybe a different question is, am I less stressed? Do I feel better? You can still be stressed, but feel better. And a lot of the complex problems that we have in our life cannot be solved in 15 minutes. They can't. But we can start to take the first step towards resolving it. And a lot of the time, the first step is just, again, awareness, and then writing down that first step. I know that for me, when I'm overstimulated and I feel like the world is breaking around me, I don't want to, it feels insurmountable, where the most helpful thing for me is just writing down not only what's stressing me out, but then what I have to do. It makes it solid. It takes me out of my head spinning with 50 tabs open of everything I have to manage, and it brings me down to, okay, here's what matters. This is what I'm gonna direct my focus on. So as we go back to this, is there something we can do about it? If the answer is no, we ask the question, are you working? If the answer is no, take a nap. You'll notice that taking a nap is one of the most crucial pieces of this. Why a nap? Well, when we nap, we get to rest. A lot of the times, it's the frame we're looking through things that makes us stressed. What do I mean by frame? So you've probably heard the example of rose-tinted glasses in the past, right? Oh, they're wearing rose-tinted glasses. They see everything better than it actually is. Well, our experience of life greatly is determined by how we perceive it. Reality doesn't exist the same for each person. And that's why you can have you can have two people, the same thing happens to them, but they respond totally differently. For one person, it ruins their day. For the other person, it's a minor inconvenience, and in 5 minutes, they forget about it. I'll give you the example. Somebody that has, let's say, a certain view of the world or people, or just they're chronically stressed. Let's say they're in the car and they're heading to work, and so is the other person. Somebody cuts them off, makes them swerve because they almost get in an accident, come back on the road. Okay, scary event. And obviously you're going to feel your hormones and stress signals rise. The person who maybe has the view that we don't want is stressed out about that for the next 12 hours. And everyone that they come in contact with, they're talking to about that. And they're saying, hey, I can't believe this guy. Not only are they trying to like flip them off and run them off the road and get up next to them and, collar at them, but it stays with them the rest of the day, and they've had their day ruined by this mystery person that they do not know. Where the other person is able to have that event happen and then go, whoa, they must not have seen me. Huh. Well, I'm okay. You guys okay? Good. Okay, well, hey, we're good to go. Let's create space between, because I know he's not a good driver, so let me create space between him and her, or him and me. And then they forget about it. And that's the I'll say, the act of getting to that point may take some cognitive behavioral therapy, and we do a bit of that in our with our clients. But it's so powerful, this simple mantra that you've heard, or this simple cliche that you've heard so many times. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Right? A lot of the stress that we have can be changed simply by learning to accept what we cannot change. And that is that's not a 15-minute fix. That's much time. But is this making sense? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. Flame me in the comments. All about having that interaction. So the question is, are we working? No, we take a nap. If we take a nap and we're still stressed, and we're not still stressed, namaste. You feel good. If you're still stressed, maybe it's time to learn to accept what we cannot change. Now, that's assuming that, again, there was nothing we can do about it. I'll give you the example of this. I'll use a mom, because a lot of us are moms out there, right? If we have our kids who are, I don't know, trying to think of a good example. Let's say that we're trying to change behavior of our children, of our adult children, right? That is extremely hard to do. And if we try to control other people at all, we will always be disappointed. Why? Because you do not have control over other people. Just like how you don't have the controls over a lot of outcomes, the only thing you can control is yourself. You've probably heard of the 3 zones before. Let me see if I can pull them up for us. 3 zones. It's not called the 3 zones of control, but the first one's the zone of control. Here we are. So we have the zone of control. Let me see if we can get it loaded here. There we go. So we have 3 zones, right? We have our zone of control, our zone of influence, and our zone of concern. Our zone of control is only the things that truly we can control. That's, as it says here, self-inventory, accept responsibility, learn from outcomes. It's not giving examples, but a zone of control would be like what you do, how you feel, how you interpret the world, how you feel about the things that are happening to you. That's what you have agency over. You have agency over the food that goes in your mouth. You have agency over a lot of things. The things you cannot control but you can influence are things like your family. You can influence your family, definitely. You can influence your let's say your patients. Can you control what they do? No. You can influence them though. And then you have your zone of concern, which is things that, you should be aware of, but honestly you can do nothing about. And that's something like the weather. You cannot control the weather. If it is raining, it's going to keep raining. There's nothing you can do. You can bring an umbrella though and control yourself within the zone of control, right? One of the things that can stress us out the most is simply trying to act our will onto things that we have no control over, and we would just, make ourselves crazy. Is that making sense? Does that resonate? Amy says, yes, it makes sense and good to think it through. Definitely. Kim says, yes, my hubby was laid off last week. New stressor. Totally. Yeah, I totally get that. So, I won't pry. But yeah, we can keep talking about it if you wish. I'll refresh this too, just to make sure that I'm seeing the comments that are coming through live. Perfect. So again, going back to this, we stop, figure out where we are, we get awareness. Is there something we can do about it? Yes. Okay, we use the stress energy, because again, stress isn't bad, like restating, stress isn't bad. Stress is simply energy, right? Too much stress is bad. We resolve the thing. Are we still stressed? Yes. Figure out where we are. Is there something we can do about it? We may have incorrectly thought we could do something about it, and the answer is no. And then if we're not working and we take a nap and we're still stressed, possibly it's time to, look into some cognitive behavioral therapy, which you can do on your own. It's tougher to do on your own, but cognitive behavioral therapy is literally just following prompts. So it's just answering questions to steer your thinking. So if you ask a better question, you'll get a better answer. Here's what I mean. Let's use the example, actually, of a lot of the people or women in this group, right? We have this, let's say, a carbon copy of the same person. Same body, same everything, same beliefs. Except one person asks the question, why can I never lose weight? And the other person asks, how can I lose weight and sustain it forever? Different question. Now, the first question, the answer to that might be, why can I never lose weight? Oh, because you have no control, right? Your brain has to come up with an answer. Well, you have no self-control, and you eat, and you eat, and you are, you have no control. What's another thing that you might say to that? You have no control, and you're full of shit. Because you always say you're going to do this, and then you don't. And that makes you feel bad. And then nothing good comes from that. Same event, different question. Yes, I haven't been able to lose weight and sustain it in the past, but if I were to do it, how could I do it this time? Well, maybe I'd have to do something different. Okay, well, what could I do that was different? Well, I'm used to cutting everything out and depriving myself. What else am I used to doing? I'm used to, essentially getting really angry and saying enough's enough, and this time's going to be different, and then I go all in, and I try to figure it out. And then I get disappointed because I don't reach my expectations in the first few weeks, and then I quit. So what could be different? You see where this is going? It's leading you down to a path that the answers are actually getting you to where you want to get to. Where, again, a question of, why can I never lose weight? Oh, you're big boned, of course. It's your hormones. Duh. Oh, and then you have no control, no responsibility. And it's like, all right, well, hey, I tried, boop, and then you leave. Where the other person asks the question, okay, I've really been trying to lose weight, and I haven't been able to do it successfully. I haven't been able to keep it off successfully. What can I do that's different, right? And then hopefully they're in a group like ours where they can stumble upon this type of stuff, and they get these ideas about the infinite and finite games, and are able to benefit. So hopefully that makes sense. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Do you guys think questions have a lot of power? What are the questions? I mean, if you guys are here, Kim, Amy, I know you guys are here. Robert, I don't know if you're still here, but what is the questions that you've been asking yourself? Maybe that you're becoming aware for the first time right now in this moment. And if you're watching this on recording, let me know too. And if this has been beneficial, feel free to like this because more people will see it and comment. But what are the questions that you're asking yourself? Kind of an interesting question in itself. Kim says, we've been dealing with the new stress by eliminating other stressors, checking things off of the long to-do list while he's home, deep cleaning, yard work, lots going through stuff for donation. So that part makes us feel good. He was to work through his union only so we don't have control there. So Kim, I love this. This is like such a great example of controlling what's in your zone of control. You say, hey, look, I don't have control over the union, right? I don't have control over the fact that they're laying him off. What I do have control over is of what you're controlling. I think one of the most beautiful questions that changed my life, which I'm going to say it twice because it's that impactful, I'll share the belief and then the question. The belief is life is always happening for me, not to me. Life is always happening for me, not to me, right? Something can happen to you and we can say, oh, why me? Why does it always happen to me? That's a question. And then guess what? Your brain comes up with an answer. Oh, because you're unlucky. Oh, because, you're a bad mom or whatever. Not good answers. The other side, how this thing happens, how can I make this work for me? And it seems that you've asked that question as you're like, well, now we have free time. What a blessing. right? Well, what a blessing. Let's take this time that you're not working, hubby, and let's start doing some yard work. Let's cross off the to-do list. Let's get empowered from this thing happening to us, right? Because people either get disempowered when things happen, neutral, I guess, or they get empowered. And the best frame that we can adopt is being able to be empowered more times than we get disempowered when negative things happen to us. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not superhuman. So my brain doesn't go there immediately. You know, if I break my leg, the first thing, I'm not thinking the first thing of, man, I'm really going to be able to train upper body good now that my leg's broken. Like, I'm going to be like, mother, I'm going to be pissed. But how long do I stay pissed? That's the question. How long do you stay in this, oh, woe is me mentality? Because I can promise you the quality of your life will come down to that. Because bad things are always going to happen to us. The question is, how long do they stay? How long do you let them stay bad? And that's what's going to affect the quality of our life. Michelle says, I agree. Questions do matter. Michelle, what are some of the questions that you're asking yourself recently that are empowering or disempowering? Kim says, self-talking my way through, remembering to ask myself what I can do that will help me. I'm good at giving advice to others, so I need to use that skill for myself. Yes, and I will say it is very hard to essentially take an objective view of things when you are the subject. It is so hard. This is why coaching exists, right? Because it's really hard to be in the moment feeling this way and to take yourself through it. It's a skill. And you can do it. I've developed that skill to a degree, right? I'm not perfect, but you definitely can. It's very empowering when you do. Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard. But hey, shout out to Kim for trying, and also shout out to you, Kim, for dealing with this new stress by eliminating other stressors. Let's go. Wait, that's not good. I'm looking for pumping music. Where's my pumping music? I was about to pump it up. That's not bad. Yeah, Kim! Woo! You rock! If you guys are watching this on recording or you're here, give it up for Kim in the chat. Okay, so let's go through this one more time. A little bit of a recap if you're coming in late. Flowchart, you're stressed. Stop, figure out why you are. You're gaining awareness. Then you determine, is there something I can do about it? If the answer is yes, you're using that stress energy to resolve the thing. Remember, stress isn't good or bad. Too much stress is bad. But just like water, water's not bad. You need it. You need it for life. It's a part of life. But if you drink too much, you'll actually die. So stress is not bad. We humans just usually have a negative connotation to it in America because we're chronically stressed. We get too much all the time. So if we're still stressed after resolving the thing or using energy to resolve the thing, stop and figure out where we are, why we are. Was it really that thing or is it something else? Right? The more that we know ourselves and the more awareness we have over our feelings, the easier it is to navigate life. Something we can do about it. No. Are we working? No. Take a nap. If we're still stressed after a nap, or if you're not stressed, namaste. And if you are stressed, learn to accept what we cannot change, which that's what put us on the rant for the last 10 minutes of cognitive behavioral therapy. And then begin to change specific limiting beliefs. You know, again, these limiting beliefs might go in tandem with what we believe about what we can control. If we're trying to control things outside of our immediate zone of control, we're trying to control other people, we're trying to control the weather, we're trying to control things that we don't have direct control over. Even, I'll give you an example here. We don't even have immediate control over the day-to-day on what happens to our weight loss. Now, we do have control over months and years, but over the day, we really don't have control. So why would we try to control it? We shouldn't. We should let go. Let go. This is why I talk about one of the foundational beliefs that you need to be able to lose weight and sustain it forever is the belief of progress, not perfection, measuring yourself in months and years, not days and weeks. So if right now we are trying to control our weight and our results on a daily or weekly basis, we're setting ourselves up to fail because you don't have control over that. What do you have control over on a daily and weekly basis? Your actions. And it's those actions that will lead to what you can control in months and years, which is the results. So zoomed in, can't control, right? The result. You can control, or the outcome. You can control the actions though. Zoom out, you can control months and years of the result. Now, if you are working, what will you do when you get home? You're going to take a nap, right? A lot of the emotional weight we feel can usually be solved with rest. And I'm actually, if you guys are interested, I've been thinking a lot about non-sleep deep rest recently, where for a lot of people, it would just be better for them to go to sleep and to actually have rest or to actually sleep instead. But I've been incorporating, I think it's called Nidra Yoga. I've been incorporating non-sleep deep rest in my days, and it's been a game changer, like truly. Because like I have some ADHD tendencies, if you can't tell. So I go high, but then my problem is like I stay high too long and then I crash. So I'm almost like I'm learning how to control the high and then bring myself down so that I don't have these crashes, which are great. So anyway, good stuff there. Let's see. Michelle says, why can't I stop eating after dinner? I'm not tired, but continue to eat. Why? Am I bored, tired, sad, disappointed? Ooh, Michelle, this is brilliant. Okay, let's unpack this a little bit for fun, right? So let's pull this in here and let's talk about it a little bit, right? So why can't I stop eating after dinner? I'm not hungry, but continue to eat. Why? I like it. So Michelle, have you isolated? Or maybe it's not through isolation, maybe it's multiple things. But what do you think it is? Do you think it's that you're bored, tired, sad, or disappointed? I have found that I am a great example of this. And when I do not distract myself, okay, so this actually segues really well into what I was just talking about with non-sleep deep rest. If I am staying at a high and I'm overstimulated, meaning that my dopamine essentially is plummeting, right? And I do not feel good, meaning that I do not feel good sitting down. The reason that this talk right now is called How to Navigate Stress as an Overstimulated RN is because I'm not an RN, but I highly identify with being overstimulated. So what happens for me at night, if I am sitting down and I have not done my non-sleep deep rest and come down myself, my brain, which I don't have control over, right? Totally, right? My emotional self, my brain is craving stimulation and dopamine because it's painful to sit here unstimulated. So what do? I go grab food. And I've realized this. I'm like, I'm not even hungry. Now for me, it's fine because I've built enough muscle over the years. I work out a lot every day. I'm not really eating over my calories. But for the majority of women that we have in this group, that's a challenge, right? Because then that leads to them not getting in a caloric deficit and then not losing any more weight. So what do we do to fix it? The question is, a better question, or not even a better question, but a different question might be, okay, could I be overstimulated? If I am overstimulated, how could I bring myself down from being stimulated to almost like restore my dopamine levels so that I don't crave dopamine as much through whether it be other forms of stimulation, food, which obviously increases dopamine, media, like Netflix, all that stuff. Again, I'm not saying this is right. It's just, questions. We're just having a discussion here. Michelle says, Michelle, the why is hard. Maybe asking why and then replace it with something like what I eat. So around the kitchen when I talk nice. Right. So I should read this out loud in case somebody isn't watching this and just reading it. Michelle says, I walk around the house. Oh wait, hold on. Like I'm going to restart. The why is hard, maybe asking why, then replace it with something like I want to eat, walk around the house away from the kitchen. Okay, yep, get out of the environment. But I tell my nonstop snacking 14-year-old, walk away from the kitchen, come back and talk about it, we can decide. Yeah, so getting out of the environment definitely can help. I know for me, Michelle says sometimes all the time, but mostly bored. Same, bored. I'm craving stimulation. So I think another way, like a healthier way, and again, let's ask a question. How could I get stimulation that wouldn't hinder my weight loss goals? Well, let's think about it. What are stimulating things that we can do? One might be, which also achieves other human needs, which we haven't talked about in this podcast, but calling a friend and talking to them. And going for a walk, right? That can be stimulating. Get out of it kind of goes with what Kim said too. Get out of the environment, call a friend, achieve the human need of connection, and stimulate. Because when you connect with others, it does secrete some dopamine. Maybe even more than eating food. Who knows? Depends on the food, depends on the person you're talking to. That's something interesting. Another thing, which for better or worse, I've used for years, was video games. So I would play video games, and then for me, I wouldn't eat because I'm already stimulated from the games. Now, for somebody else, that actually might be a trigger, where they play video games or they watch Netflix, and then they're like, well, I actually want to snack on something too. So it depends on you. It's kind of interesting. Kim says, Ryan, ADHD is awesome. Get the book. I'm telling my hubby you said to nap, and I'd be interested in non-sleeping deep breaths. So it's actually a non-sleep deep rest. But yes, essentially to get the non-sleep deep rest, you have to do non-sleep deep breaths, which is funny. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't think ADHD is a bad thing, or at least in my context. I never been diagnosed with it, but I have those tendencies, and I do think it makes me super productive, which is great. But it's either I'm super productive or I'm not productive at all. So it's a fun little thing to manage, the neurodivergent. Okay, so I think we're done with this. We talked about this a good amount. If you guys have any questions on it now or later, feel free to post it. Let's talk a little bit more about how to deal with stress systematically. So you guys might have seen this before, but the thing I'm always trying to do is look at how to deal with things systematically. I'm developing a framework right now. I call it the 4-3-2-1 RMBT method. RNBT method, which talks about essentially the 4, the 3, the 2, and the 1 things that you need. And with these things, you're good. And then everything like an umbrella falls underneath that. And I'm really excited about that. I'm building a PowerPoint for it right now, and I'll do the live next week. I really want to, hopefully, I know this probably isn't a good example in this podcast, or maybe it is, I don't know, depends on how you interpret it. But I really want to create content for people that are seeing us for the first time, and that within a couple of, a minute or two, they believe that it can be different for them. Because at the end of the day, what I don't want to have happen is the opposing. Somebody gets into this group and they're like, oh, this is cool. And then they never come back and never transform their body again, regardless of whether they work with us with one-on-one coaching or not. Our mission is to impact 100,000 RNs, 100,000 nurses. So in this group, we have 11,000 people. How many people have we impacted? I think we're almost at 12,000. How many people have we impacted out of those 12? It's hard to say. I know that, close to, 500 are clients, but I strive to have an impact even with those that, never take advantage of coaching. So if there's any content that you guys want to see specifically, or you feel like, oh man, this is like, if I knew this earlier, if I knew this when I started coaching, or if I knew this 10 years ago, or if I knew this 20 years ago, it would have changed my life. Let me know what that is so I can compress it and then make a video on it for people. Because I'm always trying to compress knowledge into the least amount of time. This podcast isn't a good example of that. We're just rambling a little bit. We're having fun. It's Friday, whatever. But, that first video that you guys see when you join the group is 25 minutes, and it's super compressed on the psychology and mechanics of weight loss with actionable steps. I want to create more of that content because I feel like with people who don't know us yet, or I have no rapport with, it's like if they can just watch a 10-minute video and light bulbs go off, man, they're going to be set on their journey. or just, start to set to start their journey. If that makes sense. All right. Any other comments here? And we'll talk about that real quick. All right. So how do you deal with stress systematically? First thing is we identify the source. So are we able to take it out at the source? Now, this is more, I should rewrite this to how to deal with chronic stress systematically. Because if something's a one-time stressor, it's just going to happen and we don't really need to put attention towards it. But how to deal with chronic stress systematically, the first thing is we identify the source. Can we rip it out at the source? This makes sure it never happens again. Now, some of these are easy to do, some of them are hard to do. I'll give you an example of maybe an easier one. Let's say that you're on break and there's people that just stress you out because all they talk about is all the things that are going bad in their life, right? And I'm talking about colleagues. So like you're at the lunch table in the break room and they're shit talking like their patients and you just don't like it and it stresses you out. It's really easy to just go sit somewhere else. But sometimes, the awareness isn't there to make that decision. So again, just can I take this out of the source? Something harder might be, and I'm not here to break anyone up, but the harder one might be, all right, my husband or my wife, like we are not a good fit for each other. Our values have changed over the last 10 years. When we started dating, they were the same, but now I'm fit and he's not. Or I believe certain things about the world and he does not. And our values have changed. And maybe that means that you start distancing yourself from them or remove yourself from them. Now that again, hard to do because for some of us, we believe that we should never divorce. But there's a reason that over 60% now of marriages end in divorce. And it's because people keep growing and then they grow, or one person keeps growing and the other person stops. And now you have a huge gap between where you guys are and your values, and then of course that goes away, and that's an oversimplification of why we might have a divorce, but that's an example. So can we rip it out the source? Now a lot of times we can't, because let's say the source is going to be work. Let's say it's patients. Well, are you going to stop being a nurse? Right? Now you might say I can change the source. So it's not that patients stress me out, it's that psych patients stress me out. Why am I working with psych? And then we start reevaluating our decisions. And we say, well, hold on a sec. Maybe it's not psych. Maybe it's just this hospital and it's the management of this hospital. I actually love psych. I just don't like the management. Okay, so why don't I switch hospitals? Right? And then we start weighing the pros and cons. But I digress. Number 2, change the way we view it. So if we're going to change the way we view it, this is that cognitive behavioral therapy we talked about a little while ago. So it happened, let's change the meaning we attach to it. Now again, for one-off things, it doesn't really matter, but for chronic stress, and we'll use the example of management. Let's say that, you have a nurse manager that is just like super mean and they're snarky and they're angry. So there's two things you can do. The first thing is you can just keep getting mad at them because you're like, why, you feel like it's a personal attack. Why are they attacking me? Or the other thing we can do is realize that, oh my gosh, there's only 2 types of responses: loving responses and cries for help. This is not a loving response. This person's making me feel bad. It must be a cry for help. And we ask a different question. I wonder why they're treating me like this. Could they be stressed themselves? What are things that they're experiencing that I just have no awareness of? Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe their home life is in shambles. Maybe their parents are really sick, one of their parents. Maybe one of their parents just died and they don't know how to cope. And all of these, essentially this anger that they have inside them is just a cry for help because they're suffering. Now, granted, is it your responsibility to solve that for them? No. But if you cannot control that, because it's not within your zone of control, you might just say, you know what? I pity them and I feel bad for them. And, when you do, because you have to, communicate or interact with them, you might just keep in the back of your mind or the front of your mind that, it's okay. And then you hold less pain to that, you hold less, emotional weight to that, if that makes sense. Kim says, idea. It was hard to talk to my family, really hard. Why I don't do it either or ever, I have no idea. But having their support has changed everything. Maybe having some advice on how to talk, how to have that talk, or how to be honest about how you're feeling. I think it was a process that was slow to ramp up for me. Maybe it didn't need to be. Yeah. So normally the things that are happening are they were instilled years and years ago. So like I'll give you the example for me. There was a period of my early 20s, I'll say, early 20s to mid 20s. I really didn't talk to my parents or a lot of my siblings. And like we all lived in the same area at the time. My brother lived in New York, but I stopped talking to everybody. And the same thing happened to me that I think you're experiencing. Around 28, I asked myself, why aren't I hanging around with people? Why aren't I like communicating with them? Why aren't I trying to build these bonds? And I didn't know immediately, but then it kind of clicked. When I was in my early 20s and late teens, I was starting my first, my first personal training business. And when I was starting my first personal training business, here, I'm just going to put these on real quick. I got a dog barking in the background. Apologies if you can hear him, but it helps me focus. ADHD tendencies. What was it? Butterfly, right? So, what was I going to say? So I distanced myself because they wanted to protect me, but at the same time were hindering my progress because I wanted to start my first business, and they were like, it's going to fail. Nobody starts business. Like, do you know the percentage of businesses that fail, blah, blah, blah. And they were trying to put that negative input into my head. Now, granted, they were trying to protect me, but I knew what I was going to do. And I distanced myself from them. I still lived at home at the time, but I distanced myself. I like really didn't talk to them other than a hello and a goodbye. And then years went by. I built my first business and it was successful. And then I was starting my first gym. And I started bringing them back in, but then same thing happened. They were like, oh, why are you going to do that? You have a good thing going. Like you have your personal training business. I was working out of a gym, but I was a independent contractor. They're like, oh man, you gotta like not give that up. Cause it was 6 figures as like a 19-year-old. And, it was like, or 20-year-old. No. Yeah. Cause then I started my first gym when I was 22. So yeah, so like from like 20 to 22, I was doing really well there, and they're like, just keep doing what you're doing. Why would you give that up? And I'm like, because there's something bigger and better ahead. And I did. And, it was hard, but I didn't need their negativity on top to make it harder. So I distanced myself. And then I kept that until I was in my late 20s, until I realized that, man, I don't need to distance them anymore, because at that point I proved myself, and I was starting to build multiple gyms, and they were like, man, I always knew you'd be successful. And I'm like, right? Like if you ask my dad or my mom, they're like, oh, I knew you'd always do it. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, I remember, but I don't hold that over them. Until recently, of course, I've put that back in, and I see them very often. But I do think it's important to, again, within our zone of control, to distance ourselves from people that are putting garbage into our brain. Because you can have the most well-meaning person pour poison in your coffee and kill you, but they were well-meaning. Or you could have your worst enemy put some sugar in your coffee and it'll just be a little sweet. So be careful of what we're allowing into our brain is the kind of the takeaway there. Another piece to this, Kim, I would say is, so let's get back to your question specifically. Maybe some advice on having that talk or how to be honest about how you're feeling. I mean, the best way that I've seen to be able to bolster relationships is, instead of starting with like, hey, here's how I'm feeling about this thing, which you can do, Instead, I just ask them. So like you kind of ramp up. So let's say you are, with your parents and or your family, anyone, and you want to have a deeper relationship, but it's kind of awkward because you're like, I don't really know where to start. Well, you start with how's the weather, and then you start ramping up, and maybe you're like, hey, maybe you do start with yourself like, hey, you know what I was just thinking? I realized how I don't know, could be anything you noticed, a distinction you made. Like that's what I do. That's how I started with my parents, because they very much are surface level by nature, small talk, and it's up to me to prompt. Like yesterday, we had a family cookout or whatever you want to call it, dinner, and I just have to lead the prompts, and I'm like, but we've already gotten to this point. But the prompt was, what's something that you learned this week or were reminded of? Right? Because a lot of time we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And, my mom gave a great answer. She said, I'm reminded about how much I like hosting events for people, like dinners and whatnot, which is why she did it midweek on a Thursday. She's retired now. But, she's like, I've lost that. I don't see friends as much as I want, and seeing friends enriches me so much. Great. That's a great reminder. But yeah, I would recommend just starting easy and ramping up, and maybe you just share some of your experiences. Like, hey, I've been on this journey lately for this thing, and I've noticed this thing about myself. I noticed that at night, I'm like, have you ever wanted to go get more food after dinner? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe, and you're like, yeah, here's what I noticed. And then maybe they'll share. Like some people just don't have depth of conversation and you're just not going to be able to they're not going to be able to go deep with them. Maybe because they just don't have that skill or they haven't thought about it a lot. Some people are more introspective than others. So something to think. I can borrow your questions from the Facebook group challenge. Good thought to lead it. Yeah. A lot of the times we need to lead it because, that's in our control. Good stuff. Let's go to those questions actually for a second, because I thought it was, I think you're talking about these questions, right? So what could you be proud of this week? There's no actions too small. What's something you could acknowledge that somebody did that somebody did to make somebody feel appreciated this week? Okay. Oh man, I need to check my grammar when I post these. Oh, actually, that's not bad. If your 15-year-old self or child was asking you for help with a challenge you're currently facing, what advice would you give them? What's something you can think about that would make you feel empowered? How can you share these good feelings you're experiencing with somebody else so that you can give them to somebody else by doing it, even create more for yourself? Yeah, questions have the power to change everything. So, good stuff. Thanks for tuning in, Kim. It was great. And if this is beneficial to you guys, feel free to drop a like, and it'll get more people to see it. And if you are watching this on recording and have yet to have your one-on-one RN body transformation planning session with me or a member of my team, feel free to click that link in the comments. Is it back? Oh man, that's so weird. My whole computer just restarted. That's so weird. I probably too much hype. Well, we were just about done anyway. That's funny. I wonder what happened there. I was about to comment that it restarted. Good time, thanks. My pleasure, Kim. I answered them in the comments. Oh, awesome. Oh, very nice. Oh, nice. I'm proud of my commitment. I'm pushing through a lot of the times when I used to sit on the couch, getting the last walk in. Way to go. That's awesome. I love that. Let's get these tunes back on. I received so much support in the group chat. Everyone's encouraging and sharing what has helped them, and my coach sent me a cool water bottle. Thanks, Chase. Did you get the shirt too, or just the water bottle? The shirt should be coming too. My advice would be, at the end of the day, reward yourself. Tell yourself you're proud. And if you need to redirect anything, make a plan and start fresh the next day. Yes. I mean, this is crucial, right? One of the things, again, that seems silly, but is so impactful in, I'll say, coaching, is learning to develop the skill of being your own cheerleader. Because if you think about what a coach is there for, in some aspect, it's being able to redirect your focus from, oh, I failed, to no, actually, I'm doing great. Because what is the reason that people fail to reach their goal? They stop. Period. Because even if people aren't getting results, if you keep doing the actions consistently and they're the right actions, which not hard to do not hard to know what actions to do, you'll win. Given long enough. But the thing that stops us is we stop, and we stop because of negative emotions. So if we can just monitor our negative emotions and make it so they don't happen in the first place, or we just limit them, we win, right? So I love that. Number 3 is like so impactful. I want to read it twice. My advice would be, at the end of the day, reward yourself, tell yourself you are proud, and if you need to redirect anything, make a plan, start fresh the next day, be your own best cheerleader. Yes. Number 4, I feel empowered when I accomplish something hard. So right now, that's pretty general for me, making myself priority. It's been many, many years of putting everyone else first, ready for the change. Proud of you, Kim. You're crushing it. Number 5, I'm talking and sharing about this group. I'm not keeping my changes a secret. I used to do that. Now that it's out in the open and finding family support for my kids and husband that I wasn't sure I had before, that's freaking awesome. Was this prompted? I'm curious. If it wasn't, that's fine. I'm just curious if it was prompted from the challenge as well. Because I know I did say multiple times, like, hey, get support from your parents. Like, have that discussion. Talk with them. Let them know how much pain you're in. Because they love you. But a lot of the times, we don't get the support because they don't even know what's going on. Because everyone tunes into their own favorite radio station. WIIFM. What's in it for me radio. Essentially just means that everyone sees the life through their own lens. And you will always feel things more strongly for yourself than anybody else because it's you. So if we can let them in, you can get that support we're looking for. So I'm thrilled. Way to go. My 14-year-old ran around the neighborhood looking for me, enjoying my walk when my 5-year-old wanted to walk with me last night. I just clicked. I'm not alone. Hell yeah. That's awesome. I'm really proud of you, Kim. This is like super powerful. I'm thrilled. Way to go. And then, yeah, I love number 4 too. Like, the biggest gift that you can give is while you're feeling this and while you're on this, this, I don't want to call it a climb, but while you're riding high is like, give this to somebody else too. Somebody that that doesn't even have to be struggling, because you don't even know, if somebody's struggling or not. It's just, hey, I'm part of this group. Like, you should join, or like, hey, here are some ideas. Like, you don't even have to give them the group if you don't want to. Just like, hey, here's, whatever, if it comes up. Because, yeah, like, I really do believe one of the reasons I've been able for myself to stay on my journey the most is because I have to in order to keep doing this, right? Like, it's really weird for me to talk about this stuff if I'm not doing it myself, Good stuff. I love it. He's so cute, dude. We just got one of those little inflatable pools. So he's like in the back splashing. It's like 22 inches deep. It's so fun. All right. That's it. Dunzo. See you guys later. Bye.